In our readings today, we get two stories of being on the mountaintop and spiritual experiences that happen on the mountaintop. I grew up in the Midwest, so hiking mountains was not something that was part of my life until recently. And so it's really fun to be able to preach this now, living in the Pacific Northwest, in a place where probably a larger percentage of us have been on a mountaintop or have climbed parts of mountains anyway, and have just gotten to gaze upon mountains on a more regular basis as we just even drive throughout the city. I'm guessing that many of us have had spiritual experiences that involve mountains, whether it was sitting and just beholding a mountain, whether it was the strenuous labor of trying to climb one, whether it was the euphoric joy of getting to the top of the mountain and being able to see what you can see. I bet that many of you have had moments that took you out of your normal everyday selves related to mountains. I recently was hiking with a friend who, as we got near the top of an area that we were climbing, he pointed out that we could see the clouds upon the mountains out ahead of us. We could see other mountains, and we could see these clouds and the clouds in the trees, and just how gorgeous that was. And he said that's his favorite thing, is the clouds over trees and the clouds over mountains. Both of our readings have that too. Both of our readings are about being on the mountain and being in the clouds. I think it's really interesting when we look carefully at the description of the first reading especially. In the first reading, it says that Mount Sinai is covered by a cloud for 6 days, and God calls out of the cloud and calls Moses up into the cloud. And it says, the appearance of the glory of the Lord was like a devouring fire on the top of the mountain in the sight of the Israelites. So the Israelites who are down at the foot of and the base of the mountain and are looking at this mountain, it's probably normal to see clouds covering the mountain. We see that a lot. But this cloud appears to them like a fire, like a devouring fire on top of the mountain, which, I don't know about you, but that reminds me of the burning bush. Where we read about the burning bush, the bush that burned but was not consumed. It burned with fire and it didn't burn up. And that was the original calling of Moses in the desert. And here we have this mountain being transformed into this huge burning bush, which is kind of amazing. And this massive, glorious burning bush calls to Moses and says, come into the burning, come into this very dangerous fire that looks like it's going to consume you, but it doesn't. I love that concept of maybe even this first reading is a reading of transfiguration, that maybe the mountain is what is being transfigured. The mountain is burning, a fire that burns but is not consumed, and Moses is being called into that, and maybe we, along with Moses, are being called into a passionate fire that burns but doesn't burn out, that somehow has the fuel created from the divine that we tap into that allows us to keep going throughout our whole lives. I mentioned in the children's message the metamorpho, the word that is used in this reading, both in Matthew's version and in Mark's version, for the word transfigure, and Jesus being transfigured, and that it's a change, but it is the bringing what is inside outward, the sort of shedding, the letting go, let it go, of all the stuff on the outside of us, so that what's inside can be brought forward. There is, I think, a liberation in that. I think that's part of what liberation theology is for me, is that we all have that light of Christ that we receive in baptism when we receive that candle. And part of liberation is letting go of all that other stuff that is trapping it. Throughout this season of stewardship, we have been singing the same song each week. Where your treasure is, there your heart shall be. All that you possess will never set you free. Seek the things that last, come and learn from me. Where your treasure is, your heart shall be. And there's so much beauty in those verses. It's pulling from a bunch of different Bible verses and jam-packing a refrain that really does pack a punch. And the line that's been standing out to me the whole season is that all that you possess will never set you free. Line. All that you possess will never set you free. And so this is that liberation theology part, that it is not our money and our possessions and the trappings of our lives that are going to set us free. That's actually the kind of stuff we need to let go of when we sing Let It Go alongside Elsa. That's the kind of stuff that is covering up that light that is within us. We get so trapped and worrying and figuring out all of our money stuff and all of our material wealth stuff that it gets in the way. I believe strongly that the act of generosity, the act of financially contributing to the church and to other organizations and to other people through mutual aid, I believe that that act of giving of our money and sharing our financial resources is part of the path of liberation, because for me, it forces me to loosen my grip on my material wealth. Because so much so we are taught to hold on to it, to hoard that wealth, to use it wisely, to save it. And how do we make our money work for us? By investing it, if we're lucky enough to get to the point that we have enough to invest. Even then, we're not supposed to give it away. We're supposed to have it make more money for us, you know? And like I've said before in this stewardship season, you know, being thoughtful and planful in how we use our money, I believe, is part of what we're called to, but not being so scared that cripples us and makes us inward focused, and it holds us in bondage. There's this very traditional prayer of confession that you might remember. Merciful God, we confess that we are in bondage to sin and cannot free ourselves. And then it goes on. And maybe those words are familiar to you. And when I think of liberation theology, I think of being broken out of that bondage. And I see that part of that bondage is this material wealth that we have been given that is both a gift and can also be a trap. So today, as we bring our intent cards forward, I hope that you have already been thinking this season about how you might liberate your money, liberate the resources that have been entrusted to you, not let them get stuck with you and your household, and let that flow of wealth and resources, let yourself be part of that flow rather than a section where it's going to get stuck and dammed up, and that's going to actually clog up your own spiritual journey and cause you to be in bondage. So today we are doing so many things as we bring our intent cards forward. We are giving thanks to God for the resources that flow through this community. We are giving thanks for the opportunity to practice something that allows us to let go of any hold that society and that those resources sometimes bring over us and keep us from being generous and cut us off from our neighbor. We have the opportunity through giving to join in solidarity with those who have less and realize that we actually can live on less and still live a really, really rich and beautiful and godly life. I hope that it also allows us to transform and let our money transform. We transform our money and it transforms us, hopefully, through the act of giving, that what is on the inside, that light of Christ, that generosity, that lack of fear, and that connection to the community, that through giving, that inward reality is able to come out. We are able to transform and to let that truth about who we are as a Christian community shine more brightly. So I invite you to take a moment to pray, to think about the ways that you have been transformed in your life, and then you will, as we sing, be invited forward by an usher, just like we do for communion. You'll be invited forward to bring your intent card forward, to place it in the basket. If you'd like to hand it to someone else to carry forward for you because you'd rather stay in your seat, that's totally welcome as well. I invite you to rise in body or spirit when you're done filling out your card. And we will sing, and when it's your turn, invite you to prayerfully bring forward your generosity as an offering of thanksgiving, an offering of hope, and an offering of transformation.